Yeah, we're just going on a
I can't refuse it. What can you feel like dancing? That's the option. Feel like dancing. Come dance with me. Roots rock reggae. Make the reggae music and now with the children you say all around the world.
So, at this particular moment in time, I'd like to introduce this good lady. And this lady has got something that's kind of like, it's the reality that we haven't really touched upon, we haven't discussed, we haven't brought to the surface here because this is a beautiful place. We've all been having such a fantastic time. But I would really beg your indulgence to sit and take stock of this because this is kind of like some deep, heavy shit that I know has been happening since I was 9 years of age and the outer hebrides now the shotgun puts in my head. Okay, this is heavy duty shit, but this is real. And this is the stuff that we don't want to talk about. But by the grace of God, these two individuals came and they're here tonight. So can we have silence, please?
Hello!
Your rapt attention, please. The young lady from Scotland, I think Lorna? Laura, sorry,
Yeah.
forgive me.
Right, everybody's
Right, so Laura, take the floor. Right, which one of these pictures? Guys, listen, there's some photographs involved in this, okay?
Yeah, my name's Laura Llangollen and I'm from Scotland, Edinburgh, and this is a story which will probably shock a lot of people. I don't expect everybody to believe it, but it's true and it's a very valid example of what's going on today within our government, social work and police system. I'm a single parent of 3 children, and in 2014, October the 14th, the social work without, sorry, 2016.
She's a bit nervous.
I'm nervous, you have to
Don't be
forgive me.
nervous, girl. Listen, we're all Scotland. Let's get drunk and party. Don't be nervous. These are all friends. These guys have come the world over to be the same. They
Yeah.
are one and the same.
Well, this is heavy. I mean, I've been given death threats not to talk about this stuff, so I'm risking my own life and I'm also probably risking Dee
Thanks.
but sorry, but yeah, to try to stick to the point, the social work in Edinburgh removed my children, who were 2 and 3 at the time, under risk of emotional abuse. And that's something that they're doing more and more now in Britain. They're removing children under what they call the judge's crystal ball. So it's nothing you've actually done of yet, but it's something they think that you may do in the future. And to be honest with you, it's a lot of BS. It just falls under a criteria that nobody can prove, but nobody can disprove, because it's not happened yet.
Thought crime.
Sorry?
Like thought crime.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, I'm not sure if you've got the same problem in America, but the percentage of children that have been taken off parents in the last year in Edinburgh has had a 300% increase, which is extremely worrying. But by the by, the children were removed, much to the shock of myself, much to the shock of my lawyer, who was private. I had money at the time, so I hired a lawyer, and he said, "Where's the smoking gun?" That's what he said to the judge. And the judge, I since learned that they always go for an emergency care order on a Friday, because it's never refused, because the social work department is shut over the weekend, and no judge will take that risk over a weekend. It doesn't matter if you're the best parent in the world. It doesn't matter. There's only 1 in 400 cases that are presented as an emergency court order to the court. 1 in 400, so that's 0.25%, which is really low, which are not granted. So the other 399 are. So unfortunately I was one of them, and I was extremely upset, obviously. My kids were upset. I was seeing them 3 times a week at the time. and I saw them round about the 20th of December. No, is that right? Sorry, I'm so bad with dates.
They were moving the 21st.
Yes, sorry, the 20th of December. I saw them on the 19th, and they were still looked like my kids. And I know how that sounds, but bear with me. So on the 20th of December, I had, excuse me, I'm a bit nervous, forget my nerves.
Can I interrupt a second?
Yes.
Anybody here that's ever seen Brian Gerrish in the UK columns been warning about this for years, that child theft is a fucking industry now. That's
Yeah.
all it is.
Child trafficking.
In Scotland, they started to decide that they could get a complete stranger to come in and act as a social worker under the social
Named
services.
person.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you see what I'm saying, guys? This
Yeah,
is
Jam used to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Criminal.
Anyway,
Yes, so on the 20th of December of 2016, I was visited by my social worker, who incidentally was a man that my children recognised when they first met, and it worried me. They were all over him, and my oldest daughter said, "Mark used to have a beard, mummy." Well, that worried me a bit because she was far too familiar with him, and they were all over him, you know, like they knew him. And my kids weren't like that with any stranger, like most of you who are mothers will know, like that's worrying. So I took it to his boss, who's Jackie Brogan in Edinburgh at the Fort Social Work Centre. And basically she said to me that to protect Alicia and to protect the social worker, they weren't to see each other on a one-to-one basis. However, that was not adhered to, and for the next 8 months he did. But I'll get back to the point, that just shows the level of corruption that we're at. So the 20th of December, the social work paid me a visit to my house and said to me that the foster carers who my children were placed with weren't coping with them. Well, I found this a wee bit strange because up till then, everybody had said that they were fine, they were settling in. You know, you've got to kind of take time with children who have been removed from a mother, obviously. But he said that they were being moved, so he said they were being moved the next day. Well, they did leave the foster carers the next again day, foster carers A, but they didn't arrive at foster carer B until the 22nd. So there's 24 hours missing out my children's care plan. Now, when I next saw my children, it was a Christmas Eve and it was a Christmas contact. And as soon as the kids came in the room, I noticed they were different. And when I say different, at the time, I was on my own, obviously, I'm a single mum, and I couldn't quite work out what was different about them, but they looked listless, they looked energyless, and they just looked not themselves. So I was extremely worried about this, and I took lots of photos, and I said at the time to the social workers, there was 2 of them, funnily enough, and I said to them, "What's wrong with the kids?" And they said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, they look different. You know, they look different." But I took loads of photos that day, and it wasn't until that night that I went home, looked at the photographs, and lo and behold, my children's eye colour had completely changed. So my oldest daughter had went from having blue eyes, which Gordon has on the screen right now, to having a very dark hazel colour. But the biggest change of all was the fact that my other daughter had went from having piercing blue coloured eyes, which her dad always commented and said, "Oh, they're just like my brothers, they're amazing, they were so blue, really blue, beautiful, beautiful blue eyes." She had went to having brown eyes, really dark brown. But that wasn't the only change. Alicia, my oldest daughter, her tongue tie had disappeared. And I don't know if you're familiar with what tongue tie is. It's a condition that children are born with when their tongue's too tight to their mouth. But because that she could eat and she could sleep properly, she could eat and she could talk properly, they said they weren't going to operate because she was handling the tongue tie well. Well, that had hence disappeared. So I said to the social workers concerned that my children had changed eye colour and they had changed ear shape dramatically, and they had also no tongue tie. My oldest daughter didn't have tongue tie. And there was other differences as well, but as a mother you know your kids, and this is the biggest insult of all, to be told that I don't, and that's what I've struggled with throughout this whole process. However, after much persuasion on my part, and I'm talking a lot of persuasion, I had to go to the chief social worker for Edinburgh, a gentleman who's since left, funnily enough, called Sean Bell, and he said that he was willing to give the children an appointment at the doctor's. And my argument was I was a concerned mother and I wanted to know what had caused this change in my kids. Especially when you'd have to be blind not to see this change, right? It's not even a subtle change. So they eventually agreed, but by the time the appointment came through, etc., it was 7 months later. And all the consultant did was look over the kids, 2 consultants from, is it King's Hospital? Some hospital in London they came up from, didn't they? I can't remember the name of it, but sorry, I'm a bit nervous. So anyway, all that this consultant could say was that the children, oh, that was another change. Sophia, my youngest child, was now suddenly double jointed. She wasn't before, but she is now. I know how this sounds, you know, and I don't expect everybody to believe me, but believe me, I am telling the truth. I've got no reason to lie. And this really needs exposed. This is about child trafficking, black market adoption, and it is horrendous. Where was I? Yeah, so I should probably mention as well that this is the amount of corruption we're at, the level of it. Before the children were removed, I was quite happy staying in a 3-bedroom house with a huge back garden. Had my teenage son with me as well, who's now 20. So we were all quite happy living. And suddenly one day the police came to the door, CID, 2 CID officers, and they said, can we come in? And obviously, knowing what I know now, I would have said no, but at the time, I said yes. Obliged, let them in my house. And they said that they needed my oldest daughter's DNA. And I asked them why, and they said they couldn't tell me. So I was really perplexed, and I wondered what on earth that was about. But my mum was there at the time, and she said, Laura, just give them it, because she's old and she's brainwashed, etc., you know. And so was I at the time, to be honest. And I just thought it was part of their inquiries. They didn't tell me why, which was ridiculous. And in hindsight, I should have said no. But I didn't. So they took her DNA, and that seems to be some sort of tie-in with all this. Because even though there's potentially 2 children missing here, because the kids aren't the same, you know. And when people say to me, oh, are you sure it's not the light? Are you sure it's not this? Are you sure it's not that? That's so insulting. Because they grew inside me, and a father, a mother, a grand, whoever you are, you don't even have to be related to a child. If you've known it your whole life, you know what they look like, right? So basically, that was that, but that strikes as a chord that's so wrong nowadays with me. But at the time, I didn't know much better. So obviously, the police are in on it, the courts were in on it, social work were in on it, and the nursery was in on it. But I should add as well that this has actually happened before. To a girl 2 years previous to me. She was a teaching assistant, and she had 2 little kids. Sorry, I shouldn't use that child. that word. Who were aged 2 and 3, a little boy and a little girl. And I don't know her personally, but I've spoken to her on Messenger. And she, exactly the same situation, same nursery in Edinburgh. Her kids were there, and they were taken off of her on a Friday, funnily enough, same judge, same court, etc. So she noticed a massive difference in her kids about 2 weeks later, and she piped up about it. She went to the police. Well, they listened to her. They'll not listen to me, because they know that 2 cases is going to look terrible. And this is Fetty's police station, who are covering for all this crap. And it's out there anyway, if anybody wants to look into this.
Did you say Fetis?
Fetty's, yes. Fetty's.
Oh, that's where Tony Blair went to
That's
school.
right, funny that.
Okay, right, no, connection made. I didn't know this, but now that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, she was actually given death threats, like myself, but she adhered to them, and obviously I don't blame her. I mean, I was scared as well when I got them. They told me if I didn't leave the country, I'd be executed, and they offered me a sum of money, and I said I'll leave, but I'll leave with my kids, and they told me it was void, so I didn't go, and I thought I was going to get killed, and they did try to kill me twice, but that's another story. However, this poor lady moved to Portugal with £96,000. Freemasons have got a lot to do with this, I'm told. And she was basically given money to keep her mouth shut and to move. But she moved with her new kids. She didn't pursue her old kids. So it's not like it's only happened to me, this. But the whole reason that I'm here today and that I've come to this crusade is to try to expose this, because it's horrendous. And it involves all parts of the government, You know, it is rotten to the core.
And the BBC.
And the BBC, everybody's coming from. All I wanted was for the police to look into a blatantly obvious change in my children. Well, I've got a friend, and luckily, he used to be part of, let's just put it as a secret sect, is that the secret? Used to be part of the Freemasons, basically. And I'm not going to name any names, he's not the only one that's told me this, but he was so distraught with watching me cry day in, day out, having to go to contacts with kids who I knew weren't the same, and having to just play along with their stupid act that they're trying to feed me. And he said to me, Laura, your kids are still alive. They've been sold. They've been sold to an infertile couple in England who bought them for a substantial amount of money. So that's where my kids are. They're out there somewhere, and I really hope that I find them. I probably would have hired a private investigator, but I've not had enough money at all to do that. So what I'd ask you all to do, like, we're here for children. Adults are there to protect children. You think your kids are safe in government care? No, they're not. My children have been sold, and I know that for a fact. And the person that's told me this has actually, he's what's he done? He made his own suicide, hasn't he? He's planned his own suicide. That's how heavy this is. So that's how high it goes. That's how heavy this is, and I am risking my life by saying this. But I don't care, because at the end of the day, it's nothing compared to the fear that my children must have felt being taken away to a new house with none of their stuff, because all the new stuff would have had to have went with the new kids, and they would have been absolutely distraught, you know. And I've also heard that it's very possible that they have tried to get my kids to forget me. But I'm told they've changed their names, they've changed their dates of birth. My oldest child's been changed to Esmeralda, and I don't know my youngest child's new name. That's about all the information I have up to now, but for a long time they tried to make me believe my kids were dead. They sent me gore photos, chopped up children, absolutely despicable stuff, right, which I've showed a couple of people in this room. But it's horrendous. And I took it to the police, and they said there was nothing they could do. And they told me that if I didn't leave, they'd phone the social work department. So I did. And that's really it. I left everything out there. Okay.
If anybody could help,
Yeah.
anybody around the world who's watching, if they know any ways to help or how to track things down, if there's a private investigator there watching, then
Yeah.
get in touch with the
Or
guys.
if there's somebody good with technology, because I believe there's some way you can put a photo of somebody into Google and search for that person, but I'm rubbish with technology, so I don't know how to do that. But this, my main purpose, my main objective is to expose this, because this has to stop. This is about children, infant trafficking, and just to give you a wee idea of how bad a scale trafficking is, it's actually the second, there's only one illegal trade that makes more money than trafficking, and it's arms. So it's above drugs, it's above all criminal activity. There's 20 to 30 million people being trafficked around the world right now. And there's approximately 600 to 800, there's approximately 600 to 800,000 people who are trafficked over international borders every year, of which 80% are female and half are children. So it's a very frightening statistic, but it's real, and I wish this wasn't happening. I really do. Wish I was imagining it. I'm not.
Social work departments are using that term, risk of future emotional abuse.
Yeah.
But who's taking accountability for the emotional abuse that has been caused by these social workers who are ripping families apart,
Yeah.
ripping mothers away, literally sending police in sometimes under armed guard to take
Before
a
the
child
kid's even born,
from a
sometimes.
mother who are at risk that they've perceived, that they've
That
made up.
might happen in the future. It's absolutely absurd, it's despicable, it's disgusting, there's no words actually, and these people, yeah, well, if I do that, I'm only going to get my kids back as they are now. I want my children as they were when they were taken off me. Sorry?
They're probably gone.
No, they're not gone, they're in England. They've been sold to a couple. He's in some sort of financial market, I'll say no more about that at the moment. But it's only a matter of time before I find them.
Yes.
And I will not stop till I find my kids. But I was a bit hesitant to get up and tell you all this because I know that you are all amazing people. I've met with loads of you and so much love in this room. And I don't want to upset anybody with my story because I know how bad it is and I don't want to put out negative vibes onto anyone. So I feel bad about even telling you this.
It's
But
gonna come out, it's reality.
exactly.
It's gonna come out.
Well, that's why I'm
It's
doing it.
on the light.
Better out than in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better out than in.
But my children, if anybody wants to look further into this, I did an interview with Miles Johnson last month and it's called Basis 95, Laura's Interrupted Journey.
It goes a wee bit more.
And it goes into a lot of detail and I've even got the consultant's reports from the hospital. But I'll just sum up what the consultant said actually. It's in my bag, I'll just get it 2 seconds. Because they couldn't explain these changes in my kids.
Can I just emphasise, consultant?
Yes, a consultant.
I just have.
Yeah. So these 2 consultants who were obviously in on it and being paid like everybody else has in this absolute nightmare situation that I'm in. I mean, I keep saying to my amazing partner Dee, I feel like I've died and went to purgatory because that's what it's like every day. I actually feel like I have went to another dimension because sometimes that's the only way I can handle this situation. But he said, Alicia has had a totally normal physical examination today. I appreciate that her mother has raised concern about what she perceives to be a change in her daughter's eye colour, but there is no evidence that there is any underlying health or medical reason why this has occurred. I came across research from May 97 that suggested 10% of Caucasian children can experience changes to their eye colour beyond the age of 6 through to adulthood, and this is something genetically determined and tends to occur with an increased incident in those children with light or blue coloured eyes. I note that both of Alicia's parents have green-brown pigment in them, that's now, they didn't used to have, and I would suggest that this is likely to be the underlying reason why Alicia's and Sophia's eye colour appears to have changed. It is a physiological process. So that's what he told me, and that's what I thought. But at the end of the day, that gave me no answers because he was talking about kids over the age of 6. My kids were 2 and 3 when this happened, and they're only now 4 and 5. So that told me nothing, you know. But I just want to underline how awful this situation is. This could be happening to anybody, and I've been told it is happening to other people who are very scared, they're not willing to come forward. There's people in Edinburgh who know exactly what's going on, but they are absolutely terrified. But the fear factor's not worked with me. So now what? What are they going to do now? Because it's out there. So even if they do kill me or whatever, you know, and there is no death, as you keep saying. But even if there is, at least it's out there now. But I would just say, can you please share this as much as possible all over the world? And if anybody's got any information or thinks they might be able to help me in finding where my children are, can you please come to me after or email me? I'm on Facebook as Laura Loudon. I'm the only Laura Loudon in Edinburgh. So thanks very much for listening.
Hello, so Laura from Leith, you're here at the Able Danger conference?
Yes, I am, yes.
And why are you here?
I'm here primarily to expose child trafficking, which is happening through our governments, and it's also happening through criminal activity. Human trafficking is responsible for making the second most amount of money in the world under arms. £21 million it made in 2014. These are the most recent figures I've got. and there's over 24 million people trafficked a year in the world.
That was probably billion, wasn't it? You said million.
Yes, I meant billion. Sorry, I meant billion. Yeah, dollars. Sorry.
Nice. And you got a personal experience, but your
Yeah,
kids?
I do. Yeah, my kids were taken off me in 2016, October 2016, with no prior notice.
There you go.
I was staying quite happily with my teenage son, and I was staying quite happily with my two little girls who were aged 2 and 3 at the time.
Yeah.
And everything was sweet. Had no social work involvement, hadn't had social work involvement years and years and years. And they decided that they were worried because I had moved around too much.
Moved around too much.
Yeah, that's what they
Right.
said. I had bed bugs, had an infestation of bed bugs at my property. I didn't know they were bed bugs, but I asked Rent-A-Kill to assess the situation. Rent-A-Kill came in, they put little sticky tape stuff down, and they took away the samples a few days later, took them to their labs and told me that I had bed bugs. So £800 was paid to Rent-A-Kill to eliminate the problem. The social work turned round and said that I had made that whole thing up, that I didn't have bed bugs, even though I had the Rent-A-Kill sheets to prove it.
Right.
And they said that because I had assaulted somebody and given somebody a black eye, even though my kids were tucked up 3 miles away in their beds with their granny looking after them, they said that I could have got the jail. My QC said it was supposition. It's like could have, would have, should have, but the judge, they had an agenda, I feel.
Yes.
They wanted my kids and they took them. And they always go for your kids on a Friday, so no judge will leave the weekend without, there's no social work office open over the weekend. They will not leave you the weekend in case something happens. There's out of every 400 cases presented to a judge on a Friday for child protection orders,
Yeah.
only 0.25% get refused, so that's 1 in 400.
Yeah.
Which is astounding and frightening.
Yes.
And also I should probably add that in the last year there's been a 300% increase in children taken into care on the grounds of risk of emotional abuse, future emotional abuse,
Right.
which hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah.
It's not occurred, but the judge seems to think he has a crystal ball and this may happen in the future, and that is enough to take your kids. So they took my kids, which was bad enough. Everybody was shocked, including myself. I hired a QC. It cost me £18,000. Didn't do me any good.
Waste of time. Note.
Absolute waste of time. I would represent myself if I'd
There
known
you go.
better
Exactly.
now.
We learned, don't we? Yeah.
However, my children,
You got any contact phone? Or?
once a month I see them for an hour. But my children,
An hour a month.
An hour and a month, yeah, that's it. I was seeing them in 2016 3 times a week. So I saw my children on about the 19th of December 2016, and I'll never forget it because they seemed extremely upset leaving me. They were already upset every time leaving me, but they were exceptionally upset this particular time. And somebody told me the kids were in danger, but I didn't take heed of it, stupidly, and thought that they were well, I was hoping they were wrong. However, they weren't. When I next saw my children came into the room, the contact centre, and I immediately noticed something was different about my kids. And I said to the social worker that was there, there's something not right with the kids. And they said, oh well, the children have been moved recently because they went from one foster carers. They moved from one foster carers on the 21st of December 2016. However, they didn't arrive at the next foster carers till 24 hours later. So there's 24 hours missing out their care plan.
Where were they?
That's a very good question. Next time I saw them, they had went from having blue and green eyes, respectively, to having brown and hazel eyes. So I took them to the doctor. After much persuasion on my part, the social work weren't interested. They said they didn't need to see a doctor. I said I was worried about their health because of both of them changing so much. And I was worried it was something like a liver problem, hepatitis. Not that I've got anything like that or my children have either, but that's the only thing that can change your eye colour after the age of 6 months old. So I eventually got an appointment at the Sick Children's Hospital. 2 consultants looked my children over, said they'd never heard of this happening, noted that it had, and said that it happens in 10% of Caucasian children over the age of 6. But that didn't include my kids because they were 3 and 4. So that got me no answers at all.
And there's behavioural differences. You're the mum. You know there's something wrong here.
Absolutely, thank you, because that is the biggest insult of all over the last couple of years, is people telling me, what are you talking about? It's the light, it's the clothes they wear, it brings out different hues in their eyes, etc. But I've got photographic evidence, and you'd have to be blind not to see this change. Also, my oldest daughter used to have tongue tie. She couldn't stick her tongue out her mouth very far because of a condition that she was born with.
Right.
But that's gone, it's disappeared. She doesn't have it now. She no longer has anemia, and she's no longer allergic to penicillin, which she was. So I know how this sounds.
Blonde as well?
Yeah, absolutely, same
Blue
hair
eyes?
colour. Not now.
Nobody did have.
Did have.
Nose.
Exactly. But at the time, I had no idea what had happened. I was very frightened
Yeah, God almighty.
and really scared because I knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
It's only through my own research that I've discovered a horrific thing, which is called human cloning.
Oh, you bang on them. Go on, love.
And I wouldn't have believed it if somebody had told me this years ago, but I do now, because the only 2 things they can't deter with human cloning is, is eye colour and ear shape. And they're the 2 things that have changed dramatically with my kids. So I had to then look for answers myself, because the consultants didn't give me any. They just said the children. Oh, as well as that, I should add that my youngest child now is double jointed and was never before.
Oh, okay. Anything else? Wow.
Yeah.
But of course, exposing the truth you find, the truth can be a trap, because no one's going to believe you. I do. And people do know who've learnt a lot of stuff. But it's so shocking. The truth can be so shocking as to make you insane.
That's right. They tried to paint me as insane, but
It's an old
the social. I was given a piece of paper from a top psychiatrist in Edinburgh, who said that I had circumstantial anxiety and nothing else. And when I presented that to the social worker took the piece of paper, threw it across the room, and said that means nothing. If I say you're mentally unfit, you're mentally unfit.
Right. This is overruling a doctor.
That's right.
Some
Overruling
social
a doctor.
worker overruling a doctor.
Exactly.
Charming. Right.
So he'd actually sent me there for that assessment, but because the assessment didn't say, I presume, what he wanted it to say,
Yes.
he wasn't happy with the assessment and the diagnosis, and he took it and threw it across the room and said that means nothing, and I've got a witness to that.
Right. And have you done any legal stuff to counter this kind of behaviour?
Yeah, I have,
Evil.
and it's absolutely evil. There's no other word for it. This involves children who were 2 and 3 at the time, and I've since been told that my original children were sold to a rich infertile couple who have changed their names. I know that my oldest little girl has been changed to Esmeralda. I don't know my youngest little girl, what they've changed her name to, but I know that they're out there somewhere, and I know for a fact that they're in Britain, because somebody thought it would be really clever, which it wasn't, to leave a Christmas card in my car which had my children on the front of it. And this was a card that had Clinton collectibles on the back. When I called Clinton Cards, I said, is this card available in the shops? They said, no, that is an ordered card. They're £12 each. So
Who's done that?
the family that have got them now, I think.
To show they're okay anyway.
I knew from that moment on that they were still alive.
So who are these other two children you meet?
I believe they're clones. In a sense, they are.
Lookalikes or?
They're similar, but there's so many differences. I'd be here all day to tell you.
Okay.
Alicia has got a gap in her teeth and always had a gap in her teeth.
Yeah.
Well, now the gap is much shorter, and she's also got a fold of skin that comes down from her top lip right down to between her teeth. She didn't have that before.
There's all sorts of things. You got a list of
Loads.
physical things.
And also Alicia keeps saying to me, Mummy, how's Max? She keeps asking me how Max is, and she refers to Max as being a dog we used to own.
Yeah.
We never owned a dog called Max.
Things
So
like
it's
this.
very strange.
Wow. And do you still see?
I see them once a month, and that's only because
Wow.
I was seeing them 3 times a week for 2 hours, but because I have not backed down with this and I demand to know what's happened to my kids, the police will do nothing about this, they will not touch it. I've been given death threats. I was
Anonymously?
told, because they're cowards, these people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they told me that if I didn't leave the country, I'd be executed.
Charming, charming,
So
baby.
I'm
Charming.
still here and breathing, so now what?
Full power, you look well done.
Exactly, and I know that this has happened to a girl before me, 2 years before me, in Edinburgh, the same thing. She was a teaching assistant, her children were removed on false grounds again, and when she next saw her children, a couple of weeks later, they were completely different. She was handed out £96,000 to move to Portugal and keep her mouth
Okay, payoff, there we go.
Exactly.
Wow.
shut. Really heavy stuff.
Whoa, absolutely.
But I
Well
really
done,
need
and
the
how have
six-
you survived?
To be honest, I don't know. I have no idea how I've got to where I am today. I think it's just with whatever's above, whether you want to call it
Yeah, angels.
angels, God, there's definitely
Spot on.
something that
Has
is, you know, giving me the strength to continue.
Yeah.
And I will fight, I will die trying to expose this.
Top draw, well done.
You know,
Keep going,
definitely.
full respect.
Thank
That's
you.
very special. How long have you been going through this?
Since 2016. A long time.
I'm inspired and in awe at the same time and slightly shocked. And
It is very
all these
shocking.
things. I've
I
heard
don't-
this from so many people. I know. I've just met you, but you know, use your intuition, people watching this. What you feel is Laura telling the
Exactly.
truth.
Well,
Only you know that, and everyone will go.
I've got no reason to lie, and I wish this wasn't happening. But if anybody wants to look at Basis 95,
Okay.
Laura's interrupted journey, Miles Johnson interviewed me last month, and
Right.
there's documentation, there's photographs,
Yeah.
there's the consultant's reports. It's all there. So
Put
it's
all
not
this together
just my.
for you into it.
This is all my evidence that this has occurred.
Wow.
So there's no medical explanation for it, and I'm seeking the truth, and I'm trying to expose this.
Top draw. Hats off, Laura from Leith.
Thank you.
Well done,
Thanks
mate.
for interviewing me.
Respect.
Thank you.
Stuck in false prison. Time is dragging on, dragging on, dragging on, dragging on. But that train keeps on rolling on down the San Antonio. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy.